But, and now we get to the real key turn in the argument. Descartes says, the content of my idea of God is such that I could not have produced it myself. So why does he say this? He defines God on page 25 as follows. He says, I understand by the name God a certain substance that is infinite, independent, supremely intelligent, and supremely powerful, and that created me along with everything else that exists, if anything else exists. So this idea of God is of something that has no boundaries in space and time. It's infinite. That is independent, doesn't require anything else for its own existence. It's supremely intelligent and supremely powerful. That means the most intelligent and most powerful that anything could possibly be. That's what supreme means, okay? The highest possible. This idea, Descartes reasons, is one that I could not have just made up myself. It's not one that I could have constructed from my own imperfect cogito state. It's not something that the ideas of my own mind by themselves would be sufficient to generate. And because of that, Descartes reasons, my idea of God must come from something outside of me. Okay? So if the only two places that ideas can come from are inside me and outside me, and I find out that the idea of God couldn't have come from inside me, then what follows from that? It follows that the idea of God must have come from outside me, right? So this is basically a proof. Up to this point, we have a proof that the idea of God, at least, is adventitious, that it's acquired by some contact with something outside me. We don't yet know, however, whether this thing outside me that produced the idea is anything like my idea of God. We don't know if it actually is a real God or if it's come from somewhere else. However, there are other premises in the argument that if we rely on them, we'll be able to prove that this idea of God, this idea of God that I have, that must have come from something outside me, okay, must also have come from something outside me that is very much like my idea of it. And so I'll share that bit of reasoning with you now. And this is the final conclusion of the argument. That the actual God, or the actual thing outside me that is the source of my idea of God, must have at least as much actual perfection and reality as my idea of it. So my idea of it, my idea of God, the content of my idea, the objective reality of my idea, as we've defined objective reality earlier, that peculiar way, that means content, the content of my idea, okay? The content of my idea of God is of something that is supremely perfect and something that is supremely real, the source of all the rest of reality, okay? And premise 3 and conclusion 1 tell me that there must be at least as much reality in the cause of something as there is in the effect. There must be at least as much perfection in the cause of something as there is in the effect. Well, here I am, knowing that my idea of God is an effect of something, okay? That it's an effect of something outside me. And the features of that idea are such that they include a maximum amount of perfection and a maximum amount of reality. The only way I could have that idea, Descartes reasons, okay? The only way I could have an idea with those features of maximum perfection and maximum reality is if the thing that produced the idea in me from outside of me really had maximum perfection and reality. Otherwise, there's no way for that idea to get stamped on me. There's no way for me to actually have those ideas of maximum perfection and reality. It has to have come outside me, and it has to have come outside me from something that has at least as much real perfection and reality as my idea of God has as an idea. And that is Descartes' proof that God exists. Not just any God, but an all-perfect, all-powerful God who is also an all good God, and that means not a deceiving God. And at this point, I will leave you with the big question. Are you convinced by Descartes' argument for the existence of God? If not, why not? What's your objection or objections? Again, Descartes thinks that this is a solid argument, super solid. I mean, we ought to just be completely convinced that God exists on the basis of this argument. You may not be convinced, so if you're not, what are your objections? Or on the other hand, if you are convinced, then then that's fine too. Say a little bit about, try to think a little bit about how others might object and how you would reply to their objections, if that's the case. Okay, with that, we'll pause and come back again next time with meditations 4 through 6.